So in this video, I'm going to kind of go over some of the thoughts that are going through my head while I'm making my spray paint art. I've got this circular cutout that I use. I'm kind of trying to find exactly where I want it on my paper. And I'm going to also grab a spray paint can and use it as another kind of guideline. Put it on the paper right there. That way I can kind of spray around them to get an idea of how big those planets are going to be that I'm going to be making. And I'm going to show you how that works in a little bit here. So I did shake these before I started filming, but I had figured I'd go back one more time and reshake them, so that's what I'm doing here. Okay, and here we go. So I'm spraying around my can and my little cutout. I don't care too much if things get under, I just put that there just to keep that from blowing away, essentially. I had to adjust, the flooring wasn't quite even, so my spray paint can was kind of moving around. There we go, so I've sprayed around the perimeter, and when I lift up my little guidelines, especially on the big circle, you'll see that there's a nice, you can tell exactly where that planet's gonna go when we cover that back up. You want to keep some semi-gloss newspaper. That's going to be used to kind of create the, affect the texture that the planets are by crumpling it up. I'll show you how that works in a little bit here. So what I'm doing here is I am trying to get a central point where the rest of the newspaper folds around that point. It'll make like a little shattering effect almost. Didn't exactly work out how I wanted it to, but I think I might revisit this in a future video so that you can see what it was supposed to look like. So the smaller of the two planets, I know I'm going to do red and orange. So you go ahead and just spray that with red and orange. We're going to grab our newspaper that was pre-crumpled, lay it down, kind of flatten it out, and lift it up. And that's what creates that planet texture. Now we're going to have some shadows in here, so we're going to go after we create that planet texture and spray in shadows. Some people will like to add in shadows beforehand, do the texture, and then go back in and re-add shadows afterwards, and that's probably the best way to do it, but I did not showcase that in this video. Here I am putting my spray paint can back onto where the planet will be. This way, when I'm spraying the other planet or anything in the background, I don't accidentally cover up what I've already done as far as that planet. Nice even coat of green, and then we're going to get some yellow too, because we're going to have a green and yellow planet. Grab our newspaper here, make sure it's nice and crumpled, you lay it across, kind of pat it down a little bit, and then you lift it up to get that effect. There you go, it's already looking like a planet almost. One thing that I forgot to check that you'll see later on is that little circular cutout that I have. That's just plain paper. I should have made sure that that was semi-gloss when I covered that, or at least let it dry first, because it actually picked up some of the paint, and you'll see that when I lift it up later on that it took some of the paint with it and left it white. What I'm doing here is I'm making kind of some of the background. I'm going to have the star right where that white spot is, and I'm kind of going around the white with increasingly darker colors until it fades off into the blackness of space. I don't know if everyone starts with the light and then works their way to darker. Generally I'll do that and then come back to that middle spot and add just a little bit more white to kind of make that shine. So here I am with the black covering up anything that I didn't already get with the white fading into that blue into purple. I'm doing my best to try to do slight sweeping motions. You don't want to focus on one area too much, that'll make it too wet and it'll really stand out. For all the stars, you spray a little bit on your finger, enough to kind of soak in so that it might drip a little bit, and then you flick your finger out towards the painting. And that'll kind of flick all those tiny little droplets. I'm still trying to learn exactly how to do it. I'll still get very big globs of white that looks bad. There I'm pointing out one of those big globs of white that I was talking about earlier. Now I'll see some people use fire. They'll grab like a match and use their can of spray to heat up and essentially dry out immediately their painting. Where I am, I couldn't really do that, so I had to use a blow dryer. Okay, here's the big reveal, pulling this off, and it's pulling up that paint, and you can see there's a big white spot there in our shadow. If this were a painting for someone else, I would definitely paint over that, cover it back up again, and then redo the space and the stars in the background, but I didn't care that much, so all I did was just kind of eye it while I spray painted it black, kept some of it white, and just called it a day. There's a little sunspot, just a little spray onto the planet. So here I'm putting a stencil on. You could see I was touching it earlier to make sure it was dry enough for the stencil. The stencil is semi-gloss on one side, so I am able to put that on the painting, and even if it was still a little bit wet, I wouldn't have to worry about it that much. I grabbed some extra paper from the other room just to cover up the spots that I did not want to get painted. Here we go, I've got some glow-in-the-dark spray paint, and kind of holding down my stencil there because I'm afraid of it bleeding too much, but it didn't bleed at all. And I applied about, I don't show it here, but I applied about 6 to 10 coats. I feel like I went out there way more times than that, but that's probably a realistic number. After each coat, I would let it dry for about 6 minutes, and then I'd head out again and paint it. Now in this video you see me taking everything off and I peel off the stencil. You could not see it glow hardly at all with just the naked eye, so I had to go out and go over that stencil a few more times.